Hey guys, OJ Albina here, bringing you guys another Scarlet and Violet guide video, finally. Today we're going to be talking about CHIEN-PAO and how to use it. It's honestly been my favorite Pokemon to use this generation that's come out, like new mons. Even more than Roaring Moon, I know, which sounds crazy. Roaring Moon's still definitely my favorite mon that's been introduced, but this has been the one that's the most fun to use. Again, I apologize about the lack of the videos last week. I uploaded a Wi-Fi battle a couple days ago, or 3 days ago now at this point. I was like, I'm back at it. And then I started feeling worse again. For those of you who don't know, I've been very sick the last week, since about last Friday. But I went to the doctors, I've been taking medicine. I'm feeling mostly okay. I'm actually going back to work tomorrow. So that means that I think I'm okay enough to start making videos again. I really appreciate those of you who stuck around bearing with me, waiting for the content. And yeah, hopefully this guide video ties you over to the next one. But yeah, with that being said, if you guys do enjoy today's guide video, be sure to drop a like on the vid, as well as subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 2,000 and we are making great progress before we stopped uploading for that week. I'd really appreciate if you helped us gain that momentum back so we can shoot towards that 2,000. And yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. So first off, with CHIEN-PAO, we'll start off with its stats and things of the like. It's rocking out with 80 HP, 120 attack, 80 defense, 90 special attack, 60 speed F, and 135 speed. It is a dark and ice type with the ability Sword of Ruin, which is going to drop the defense stat of every other active Pokemon by 25%, which is really, really incredible as a raw wall breaker. 120 attack really isn't that I mean, it's impressive, it's very strong, don't get me wrong, but it's not like world breaking, power. But when you take into account that it's going to automatically be dropping everything's defense by 25% anytime it's on the field, that's pretty darn insane. It's going to make this thing an incredibly potent wall breaker alongside its great 135 speed. I've heard this thing be called Mega Weavile on crack. Like, this thing is everything Weavile was and more. Incredibly strong, incredibly fast, and we'll kind of jump into what it does well right here. Next up, we'll talk about some of its moves. First up, we'll talk about some just offensive stab options. You can rock out with Crunch for physical dark stab, Icicle Crash, Sucker Punch for great priority, as well as Ice Shard. Now, I get it, you're very fast, but with how fast and offensive this meta is, and especially with how frail this Pokemon in particular is, having strong stab priority, especially on both sides, is really, really incredible in allowing you to set up and win the game. We also have access to Sacred Sword to break through bulky steel types, which you might want to check us and things like that. Ice Spinner is a new 80 base power, I believe, move that is a little bit more reliable than Icicle Crash in the sense that it won't be missing, but you lose out a little bit of power and that flish opportunity, so you kind of have to give and take and decide what you want from there. And then Psychic Things, it's really its only other coverage option that it has. It also has Ruination, which is basically Dark-type Nature's Madness, kind of like the Tapus. These things are really, really similar to the Tapus. This is just Ice-type Tapu Koko. But this guy is, it's not really going to be taking advantage of the Ruination move. It's something like a Ting Lu would, or a Wo Qian would, because its attacking moves are going to be doing the physically breaking and things like that. It's not going to be playing bulkier like the other two defensive ones. So you're not going to see Ruination on this thing a lot, but I figured it was worth mentioning. And as you can see, there's not really a lot of coverage on this thing, but Dark Ice Fighting is almost perfect coverage. Like, not much switches into that. You have like the random Psychic Fangs tech maybe in a draft league if you're playing like a Toxapex or something like that. But most of the time, you're going to be running dual stabs in some conjunction with potentially a Sacred Sword, as well as one of its, setup options in Swords Dance, which is a great option on this guy. I know it has very frail bulk, but it does have a decent typing, and it does have a decent defense stat plus HP. Not like great, but enough to where it can live a hit. So if you're like a boot set or something like that, you can find opportunities to Swords Dance, and when you get up to Swords Dance, it's often just game, especially considering the fact that you do have dual priority. So even faster Scarfers, a lot of times it just isn't going to be enough to stop you. You also have access to a very fast Taunt, which is always reliable. Fast Haze can be nice in like draft league situations and things like that. And has Recover, which I didn't know until I started making this video. Again, I don't think you're going to see very often a Recover CHIEN-PAO, maybe outside of like a niche draft league thing where it's like very bulky, like an SD Recover variant, but it's still very cool to see nonetheless. I'm trying my best not to cough for you guys too. I got a cough drop on my right cheek right here, so if you see me like moving around a little bit or I sound kind of funny when I'm talking, it's probably because of that. But I apologize in advance. But now that we've seen the moves it gets, its stats, its move pool, its abilities, all that good stuff, we can kind of start talking about some sets you might want to run on your CHIEN-PAO, whether that be on the OU ladder, in draft league, on battle spot, whatever it may be. First up, we just have a pretty standard Life Orb set here. Just max attack, max speed with the Jolly Nature. You can either rock out with Icicle Crash or Ice Spinner, depending on how risky you're feeling. Again, the risk versus reward is something you're going to have to take into account, whether or not you want the 100% accuracy or if you want a little bit more power plus flish chance from the Icicle Crash. Crunch is pretty much always a given. Sacred Sword is pretty much always a given on a 4-attack set. And then we're going to kind of have to decide whether or not we want Ice Shard or Sucker Punch. And again, it is going to be dependent on your team. Whether or not you want the little bit stronger but more risky Sucker Punch or the more reliable Ice Shard that's going to be picking off faster dragons. Maybe things like Dragapults in the tier, +1 Roaring Moons and things like that, which is obviously very, very nice. As well as a way to pick off weakened Iron Valiants that might be like Boost Energy or Scarf or something of the sort. So I definitely think that 4 attacks is awesome because you don't really have as much of that 4 moveset syndrome as you would with the Swords Dance set. We'll definitely talk about that because I do have 2 Swords Dance variants right here with heavy duty boots. This first one is going to be Crunch, Sacred Sword, Ice Shard, and Swords Dance. Being that we have like the coverage of Crunch as our main attacking option, I figured Sucker Punch was a little bit redundant, and having the Ice Shard for Ice Stab plus priority is going to be pretty nice. And again, you'll see the next set is a little bit kind of flip-flopped in the opposite. Sacred Sword is again great coverage overall. It's also great for the CHIEN-PAO mirror. If you can, when that speed tie and it ends up coming down to it, it's pretty nice to be able to have that option to knock out and completely OHKO other CHIEN-PAOs with Sacred Sword. So that's another nice thing to keep in mind there. But again, this thing's going to be very strong. Heavy duty boots going to allow you to kind of facilitate more setup opportunities. This thing's really going to appreciate good momentum, maybe some screens from a Grimmsnarl or a bunch of hazards as well to chip things down since you don't have that life or power. So you might not even have to SD. Then the other set is going to be, again, kind of similar. This time we're rocking out with Ice Spinner as our main stab. Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, and Swords Dance. Ice Spinner, again, is a little bit more reliable of an option because we're looking to kind of set up a Swords Dance and at +2. We're going to be doing sufficient damage to where we don't really need to risk that Icicle Crash miss. And then we have Sucker Punch because we have the reliable Ice Stab as our main attack, so might as well get that dark coverage somewhere in our Sucker Punch. Then we still have Sacred Sword and Swords Dance. Now, as for the Terra typing on this guy, it really depends on your team. In particular, I've been running this set a little bit more when I've been running CHIEN-PAO on the ladder, and I've been running Terra Dark with it just to get ridiculously strong crunches. And you know, pure dark is a little bit better of a defensive typing than pure ice, so that's obviously very nice. But again, I think if you're going with this set, you can run with like a Terra Ice and have really strong ice spinners. You could also go with Terra Fighting and have a really strong Sacred Sword as well, and again, become not weak to the things that you typically are, and maybe find that setup opportunity a little bit better. So there's a bunch of different options there, in all honesty, and you just kind of have to find it on your own, and what works best for you and things of the sort. And yeah, that's going to be kind of the sets that we have today. Now next we're going to talk about some potential partners that you might want to pair with your CHIEN-PAO. I think offensive fightings are going to be great within one in particular. Is going to be something like Annihilate. As we talk about other things that CHIEN-PAO pairs with great, they also pair great with Annihilate, and I do like this Pokemon a lot. There's also another fighting that I think is incredible with CHIEN-PAO, but it's going to be the last one we talk about on the list. But Annihilate's great, whether it be the tried and true Rage Fist bulk up set, which is incredible, but even like Scarf variants can be very, very solid with this guy, which is nice. Then we also have Glamora. CHIEN-PAO loves Hazard Stack. It loves spikes and T-spikes and rocks being up, really chipping everything down, putting it in range of its Ice Shards and its Sucker Punches, of its Crunches and its Icicle Crashes and Ice Spinners and Sacred Swords and all that fun stuff. It really does appreciate that hazards, and there's no better Pokemon in the game right now than Glamora to get up those hazards. Another Pokemon that is really going to facilitate that hazards endgame is going to be the tried and true goat of every OU team right now, it feels like, in Goldango. Goldango is incredible. Offensively, it's great. It checks fairies as well, which is nice if there's like a random fairy that you do run into on the ladder, though there's not a lot of fairies in the format in general right now. So, you know, again, take that with a grain of salt, but you know, Goldango's going to be solid there in that, right? It is immune to fighting, and if you're like an air balloon set, it's great for like, you know, great tusks and things like that, trying to spin away your hazards. But yeah, Goldango's going to be great keeping up hazards as well as threatening a lot of things offensively, with that Ghost and Steel typing, complementing that Dark and Ice typing well. And then what I think is the tried and true go with this Pokemon, big, what do you call it, Great Tusk. Absolutely love this Pokemon. It's a demon. It is so bulky, it's so strong, it's a great spinner. Again, I could just said like Goldangos are on every team, and a lot of them are running air balloons to try and stop what do you call it, Great Tusk from spinning, but you can just knock them off once and then they're 2-KO'd, and then you can spin afterwards. So there's a lot of really cool things that this Pokemon can do. I really do like Great Tusk. I think it's a pretty incredible piece with CHIEN-PAO, and really on most teams in general in the meta. It's just a very reliable Pokemon, and I don't think you can go wrong with it. like starting off a team with a CHIEN-PAO, Great Tuskull, Dango, Glamora, it just seems like a very easy blueprint to start, and then you can kind of flex and go with what you want from there afterwards. So yeah, that's gonna be today's guide video. Let me know if you guys enjoyed. Again, I appreciate you bearing with me. It was even tough for me to like kind of sit down and record these out after talking for this last 10 minutes. I'm like, man, dude, I need to go take a nap. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like. If you're new here, drop a sub, and hopefully I'll see you